Thank you for joining us yet again on our news desk on QTV. The headlines. National Democratic Congress NDC President MACHAMADA says he will pay back the money he earned as a minister after Parliament was dissolved in 2016. Congestion in correctional facilities in the country has continued to increase, with the 2017-2018 State of Human Rights in Zambia report indicating an increase of 321%. The Anti-Voter Apathy Project AVAP has warned that ignoring the gun culture that is slowly creeping into the electoral system will be costly to the country in 2021. Here now is the news in detail. National Democratic Congress NDC leader MACHAMADA, who is one of the ministers that remained in office illegally following the dissolution of Parliament in 2016, says he will pay back what he earned. Mr. Kambwili says he has since written to the Trade Secretary to the Cabinet asking him to tabulate how much he's supposed to pay back. He says he respects the Constitutional Court's decision and therefore he will pay back what he earned as directed by the court once he is told how much he owes. And Mr. Kambwili has told QTV News that he will sue government seeking to be paid for the services he rendered during the period he, together with other ministers, remained in office illegally. He says his reason for suing government to be paid for the services he rendered is because President Edgar Lungu is the one who told ministers to remain in office after Parliament was dissolved ahead of the 2016 general election.
I am ready to pay back the money in accordance with the Concord. But you must know that there is a rider that I'm also going to sue government to pay me for the services for that 3 months that we remained in office. It's as simple as that. I respect the courts. So we've written to the Secretary, to the Cabinet, I've written to give me how much I owe. And also, I'll take a writ against the state for them to pay me for the 3 months that I served, because I never stayed in office in my own accord. I was told by the appointing authority. And in Zambia, the powers of the states to administer the country is vested in the president. He's the one who is elected by the people to govern. So if the man who is elected by the people to govern says stay in office, then certainly the government is committed to pay me. So I'll pay back, and I'll also take a writ to recover the money for the services that I offered to the Zambian government. I am ready.
Congestion in correctional facilities in the country has continued to increase. The 2017-2018 State of Human Rights in Zambia report has revealed. The reports indicate that the congestion in correctional facilities has astronomically increased from 206% in 2014 to 321% in 2017, partly due to pre-trial detention and delays in hearing of criminal appeals. Speaking during the launch of the report in Lusaka, Human Rights Commission Chairperson Madford Mwandenga says 35% of all complaints received by the Commission related to or resulted from challenges in accessing justice. Mr. Mwandenga says the issues relating to congestion in detention and correctional facilities have been a source of major concern for the Commission. More in this report.
The Human Rights Commission has today launched the 2017-2018 State of Human Rights in Zambia report. Among issues that have continued to be a source of concern for the Commission is congestion in detention and correctional facilities, the enhancement of the Bill of Rights, among others. Commission Chairperson Madford Mwandenga now explains.
The Commission is aware and is however concerned at the inadequate disbursement of funds towards the decentralization of the High Court and the National Prosecution Authority, as well as towards enhancing case flow management as planned under the 7th National Development Plan. In short, the Commission is urging the government to adequately fund Pillar 5 of the 7th National Development Plan, which aims at improving human rights, constitutionalism, and the rule of law in Zambia.
Foster Hamuyube is Human Rights Commission Chief Research and Planning.
Reporting is a two-way system. The state has its obligation to provide a report when it's required to the treaty body or to the mechanism. But also, as Human Rights Commission, National Human Rights Institution, and other stakeholders like CSOs, we have another channel, another door where we can actually provide our reports independent of the state. I know that you need it to be able to shadow the report.
Meanwhile, some stakeholders also had their views.
Where is the problem? If the main niche of the private lawyers affiliated to laws is to defend wrongdoers and not making money, why is the pro bono dying? Laws is too expensive. People are failing to pay, and pro bono is completely dead in Zambia. That is why we have such numbers of people failing to pay the thousands they are demanding per hour. We request you, sir, to engage them.
It is the hope of the Commission that the information and findings highlighted in the report will equally inform implementation strategies of the Human Rights and Access to Justice project to ensure some of the gaps highlighted are addressed. Martha Katambi, QTV News in Lusaka.
The Anti-Voter Apathy Project, AVAP, has warned that ignoring the gun culture that is slowly creeping into the electoral system will be costly to the country in 2021. AVAP Executive Director Richu Mulwani is calling upon the Zambia police to enforce the directive by President Edgar Lungu to disarm all political parties that have militia groups. Mr. Mulwani says AVAP suspects that those with guns and such groupings could simply be criminals disguising them among political parties. In an interview with QTV News, Mr. Mulwani has since called on President Edgar Lungu to ensure the Zambia police is allowed to rid such criminal elements without any political interference. Mr. Mulwani says AVAP believes that the rising gun culture can be stopped if the police is allowed to reform its mandate independently as provided for in the Republican Constitution. The government has been advised not to expect any International Monetary Fund (IMF) program before the 2021 general election. Economist Chibamba Kanyama is projecting that if Zambia is to have an IMF program to restructure the economy, such an endeavor can only be feasible after the general election. Mr. Kanyama has however observed that there are indications now that the new finance minister, Walyangandu, may succeed in having Zambia have a representative from the IMF. He has told QTV News that Zambia will need an IMF country representative to negotiate for a financial bailout from the fund.
And there are indications now, I'm sure there are indications that perhaps the minister should be succeeding to have that replacement. Once we have a replacement, then we'll have a clear picture as to the next step. First of all, starting with Article 4 discussions, and then what comes after that is perhaps discussing the program, which may not kick in now. It may only kick in, if it has to kick in, it may be feasible after the 2021 elections for obvious reasons.
Stone throwing irate Kanyama residents on Sunday night damaged a fire truck and in the process injured 3 firefighters, accusing them of having a hand in the load shedding being experienced in the area. Confirming the development to Q News, LCC Public Relations Manager George Sichimba explained that the fire department around 22 hours received a phone call from a concerned resident from Shula area of Kanyama about a house in the area being on fire. Mr. Sichimba explains that the fire truck and a team of firefighters was immediately dispatched to the scene, but that upon arrival it was discovered that in fact what was on fire was a Zesco transformer, which the team managed to quench. He says no sooner had the fire been quenched did the residents who came to witness the incident start pelting stones at the officers and equipment, resulting in the windscreen of the cabin crew of the firefighter truck being shattered and 3 firefighters sustaining injuries. Mr. Sichimba says the irate residents demanded that the firefighters restore electricity supply in the area, accusing them of contributing to the Zesco load shedding in the area.
What happened was that around 22 hours last night, our fire brigade received a call to the effect that there was a house that was on fire in Kanyama in the place called Shura area. And so we dispatched 1 fire truck and a team of firefighters. But upon arrival on the scene, it was discovered that actually it was not the house which was on fire, but the Zesco property, which is the transformer in the area, was on fire, and our team managed to quench the fire. But upon doing that, some onlookers, the residents around who came to witness the incident, started pelting stones at our officers and also our fire trucks. They demanded that our firefighters should restore power in the area, and also that our firefighters were contributing to the load shedding in the area. But that instance was very unfortunate because our mandate as a Lusaka City Council and Fire Brigade is not to restore Zesco power in the area, and we have got nothing to do with the load shedding. And so as Lusaka City Council, we want to remind residents in general that this hostility towards our council officers and also the damage to our properties is not healthy at all.
Patriots for Economic Progress PEP President Sean Tembo says the government's failure to import electricity from neighboring countries such as Angola, Malawi and Mozambique to mitigate the current power deficit will prove to be fatal to the already exhausted economy. Zesco had announced it would start importing power from Eskom of South Africa on the 1st of October 2019 before announcing that the deal had not yet been finalized. Mr. Tembo says failure by government to commence the importation of power is evidence enough of not only incompetence but also dishonesty and lack of seriousness. He states that Zambians will hold President Edgar Lungu personally responsible for the collapse of the economy as a result of the perpetual load shedding.
We are greatly disappointed with the ongoing load shedding situation and its adverse impact on a lot of businesses, because currently various businesses are struggling just to remain afloat. And it must be noted that every time these businesses close down, it results in loss of employment to various Zambians, and it basically increases the levels of poverty in the nation. We are equally disappointed of the fact that the government has been dishonest when it comes to their plan to import electricity from Eskom in South Africa. Recent revelations have actually unveiled the fact that the government has not even approached Eskom in the first place. So we are dealing with a government that is not only incompetent, but also dishonest. And it's regrettable that President Lungu is not serious when it comes to trying to find resolutions, basically, regarding key challenges facing the nation, such as this load shedding situation. I think these are the kind of situations which unveil how competent and how able a given leader is. If someone cannot find solutions to national problems like the power deficit, then clearly such a person lacks the competence to manage the affairs of the nation.
Mines Minister Richard Musukwa says government is in the process of identifying a suitable investor to take over the operation of the Konkola copper mines once the court's case is concluded. Mr. Musukwa has told the QTV News in an interview that what is important at the moment is that the company is currently operating normally. He adds that Konkola Copper Mines liquidator Milingolungu has continued dismantling the debt owed to local contractors and suppliers. Mr. Musukwa could not, however, disclose how much money the liquidator has so far paid out to contractors and suppliers.
As you know, there is a court process, and as a government of laws that respect the jurisdiction of the court process, we are waiting for the court process to be concluded. But in the background, we have been working around to ensure that a strategic partner or an investor, so to say, must be able to take over the running of the operation. What is good is that currently, as we sit, the company is running and operating, and I think that you and me, even at a personal level, you would like to buy a car which is running. So what we have done is to ensure that the company is running and operating, so that at an opportune time when we get an investor, we should be able to find the company is running. In fact, the values in terms of what was owed to contractors and suppliers could go in excess of those values. That's why government intervened, because we saw that slowly the company had suffocated. So it's a huge indebtedness to the local contractors and suppliers, and The good news is that slowly the liquidator is dismantling that indebtedness so that we can create a platform of viability in our economy, especially on the copper belt.
Forum for Democracy and Development, FDD Chienge Member of Parliament, Given Katuta, has appealed to parents in the district to ensure their children are vaccinated against polio, which has broken out. Health Minister Dr. Chitaluchilufia on Sunday announced that Zambia has recorded one case of polio in Chienge district of Luapula province after successfully recording no case since 1995. Dr. Katuta says the outbreak of polio in Chienge district is a source of concern. Dr. Katuta, who is also president of the Interparliamentary Union IPU Advisory Group on Health, has since called for concerted efforts from all stakeholders in fighting the disease.
I think the best way that they're going to go about is by trying to prevent more cases. And I've already found few people there in Chienge. I've found also some headmen to see if they hear of the vaccinating team going to Chienge. They must encourage all those who have children, I believe, below 7 years age, because polio is not something that we should take lightly. You see, as we just returned from Serbia, IPU conference, the 141 conference, it was all around universal health coverage. And these are some of the things that we had discussions with the Director General of WHO, that there are diseases that we seem to have ignored, which are taking place because of shift of focus. We focus so much on HIV, some epidemics that we focus on, forgetting that there are other diseases like what have just emerged in Chienge. So I believe together with the Ministry of Health, we've already started mobilizing to start vaccination campaign in Chienge. We'll do that to curb further spreading of this disease.
Government has been advised not to dismiss concerns of those that are questioning its ability to secure funds for the 2020 national budget. NDC-run Member of Parliament Joseph Chishala says those raising such concerns are justified. Mr. Chishala says this is especially that government was unable to secure all the funds for the 2019 national budget. He has told QTV News that he is, however, happy that in the next year's national budget, the finance minister has set aside monies for servicing external debt.
Of course, the 106 billion, it's a good sum of money, but the worrying part is that the previous budget for 2019 was less than 1 billion, but monies were not secured to meet the budget plan. The worry is that where is the 106 going to come from? That's the main worry. Then I've noticed that in the budget there's what he has secured as sinking fund. That sinking fund is a good idea because that will help us control debts. And the other part that I'm happy with is securing funds to settle the local debts, which will also improve on the liquidity of funds in the country.
Zambia Land Alliance Executive Director Patrick Musole has called on the Human Rights Commission to look more into aspects of displacement of communities from their land. Mr. Musole says he has continued to receive reports of people that are being displaced from the land they have lived on since birth because of various reasons. He says this is a violation of human rights and something needs to be done immediately. Mr. Musole has also called on other stakeholders that have a concern for human rights to help protect the rights of these communities who are being displaced every day.
One gap which was not highlighted was the missing of information on the human rights violations of local communities who have been being displaced every day by mining investments and other investments. Farming investors and all foreign investors are coming to displace local communities, which is a violation of human rights. And I think we would like to encourage the Human Rights Commission to look more into the aspect of displacement of communities from their land. They are being displaced from the land, from their resources, and from their territory, which is a violation of human rights. And we'd like to encourage the Human Rights Commission and other stakeholders that have a concern over human rights to look into this so that together we can work to protect the rights of human rights of local communities.
Patriotic Front Media Director Sunday Chanda says it is double standards for the United Party for National Development, UPND, to try and make topical the issue of PF cadres being in markets and bus stations when it is an issue that is obtaining on the larger scale in their own background. Mr. Chanda has challenged the UPND to tell the nation if bus stations and markets in Southern Province are not being run by their party cadres. He says the UPND is looking for an opportunity for relevance and to trigger anarchy in the country by making such topical issues. Chanda states that the Patriotic Front has a mandate to ensure that there is law, order and peace continues to reign while the UPND has nothing to lose.
We have not made an issue out of it because we know that before those people are cadres, they are also citizens. And for as long as there's no lawlessness, and if there's something that they're doing which is agreed upon between themselves and the local authority and the traders, if there's a framework in which they operate, that is of no consequence for us, and we have not made an issue out of it. Whether it's from the days of the UNIP or the MMD or indeed the Patriotic Front, there's never been a regime that did not have presence in these places we're talking about. And let the UPND, if the UPND, in the unlikely event that they formed government, they would want, and their cadres would be in all these places we're talking about. So UPND's hypocrisy is neither here nor there.
The Dairy Association of Zambia has noted the need for government to give regular updates on the outbreak of foot and mouth disease in some parts of the country, which has affected the growth of the dairy sector. DAS Executive Director Jeremiah Kasalo notes with concern how such activities such as movement of animals and production of dairy products has slowed down as a result of the measures that have been put in place to contain the further spread of the foot and mouth disease. Mr. Kasalo feels regular updates will be helpful to the dairy farmers. In August this year, Fisheries and Livestock Minister Professor Nkanduluo announced that 2.4 million doses of vaccine were required to contain the outbreak of foot and mouth disease in affected parts of the country.
So it has affected us in the terms of restricted movement. There are some farmers who may want to buy dairy animals to restock or just to beef up they are unable to do so because you cannot move the animals now from, let's say you buy an animal in Chisamba and you are in Monze. You cannot, we are told you cannot move the animal to Monze. So that restriction in movement, it's slowing down development and growth. Yeah. Then in terms of movement, even the beef cattle, because some people may want to move the animals so that, as you know, there's this issue of drought, like in the southern province and many other places. So the yield in terms of pastures have been low. Therefore, they may want to earn an income from maybe sale of beef animals, but there's this restrict movement. Then also the prices have dropped significantly. So the foot and mouth is a worry.
Well, that item concludes our news, but before we go, here's a recap of stories in the headlines. National Democratic Congress NDC President Shimbakambwili says he will pay back the money he earned as a minister after Parliament was dissolved in 2016. Congestion in correction facilities in the country has continued to increase, with the 2017-2018 State of Human Rights in Zambia report indicating an increase of 321%. The Anti-Voter Apathy Project, AVAP, has warned that ignoring the gang culture that is slowly creeping into the electoral system will be costly to the country in 2021. That's all for the news. Bye-bye and God bless.